Alright, so in this video we're going to look at levels of motor control. Cerebellum and basal nuclei are the ultimate planners and coordinators of motor activities. This is because they store information about, basically how to coordinate a certain motor activity. And complex motor behavior depends on a lot of complex patterns of motor control. They occur at three major levels: segmental, projection, and pre-command. So the pre-command level is the highest level here. This includes your cerebellum and basal nuclei, which are part of the cerebrum, and these contain programs and instructions for motor control. Think about this as sort of like muscle memory. Now, these programs and instructions can be modified by feedback, and this feedback can come from sensory input. Like, we can think about the sensory input as maybe like auditory, visual, or even vestibular information. This feedback can also come from the spinal cord, from the level of like proprioceptive feedback. So we can actually get some proprioceptive feedback as well. Now, this pre-command level can help send instructions to the projection level, which is more of the conscious portion of your brain, which includes your motor cortex. Now, your motor cortex, like the pyramidal pathways of your primary motor cortex, can send information out along your spinal cord. And this sends a copy as well to the higher levels. So as information descends to the spinal cord to send out basically a command to your lower motor neurons, there's also a copy of that command that's sent to the pre-command level here that checks that feedback and makes sure that it's actually a good sort of plan. And if there's a problem, then the pre-command level can actually send information back to the projection level, and you can modify this in real time. So ultimately, the projection level is sort of the conscious sensation of conveying instructions to the spinal cord. And these instructions can be sent to the segmental level. And at this level, the spinal cord, we actually have motor neurons in the ventral horn that contain central pattern generators, or CPGs, and we can use this for some sort of motor output. Now, there is a reflex pathway that is at this level too. And interestingly enough, it actually doesn't involve the brain. So some reflexes only require sensory input that go through the spinal cord, can interact with these central pattern generators, and then have motor output as a result. So if you take away from this slide, basically what we want to think about are the major regions of motor control. So spinal cord contains central pattern generators, projection level conveys instructions to the spinal cord, and the pre-command level, which includes your cerebellum and basal nuclei, basically programs instructions. It contains those, and you can use those to help modify feedback. So what we see here then are all those major motor regions of the brain. So our pre-command level includes our basal nuclei as well as the cerebellum, and again, that contains instructions and programs for motor control. Our projection level includes the primary motor cortex as well as brainstem nuclei, and these actually send output command to the segmental level, which is your spinal cord, and that's going to send information out to some sort of peripheral effector like skeletal muscle. But what's important to note is you have a lot of different motor regions in the brain. So when you think about brain injury, it can very likely affect the motor portion of the brain. And so we can look at someone's motor control as an indicator of brain health, considering so much of the brain is involved with motor control.